In a week where I personally have taken 4 blows to the head as well as to other body parts, some of you know the whole story. I'll tell the rest of it at the end of this live stream. These are two teams in the Buffalo Bills and the Houston Texans that have also taken some, let's say bruises to the ego in the last couple weeks. The Bills last week at the hands of the Baltimore Ravens, the Texans 2 weeks ago at the hands of the Minnesota Vikings. And they're both teams that obviously on paper look like they should be Super Bowl contenders. The Bills have looked more like a Super Bowl contender, obviously for the last few years, but this season as well, as they've beaten up on a couple of bad teams, but also slugged it out and had a good win versus the Tua Tagovailoa having Miami Dolphins, but they got the snot beat out of them last week. And they're reeling from that a little bit. I know you guys sometimes get upset when I talk too highly of the competition. So I'll have Nick Caserio here do the dirty work as he talks about, hold on a second, as he talks about one Josh Allen.
A massive problem. So he can throw from the pocket. He can get the ball basically any part of the field from the pocket. And then he's a threat as a runner. They have plenty of designed runs for him, critical situations where they want him to handle the ball. And then the play you alluded to the other night, there's an example of he gets outside of the pocket, he's running. He's a millimeter from the sideline, and he launches it 65 yards downfield to Shakir, who's uncovered. There's not many quarterbacks that can do those things in this league at as high a level as Josh has done. So that's a credit to him. He's a really good football player. He deserves all the praise that he's receiving, and he's grown and improved as a player. Again, not saying like Nico Collins, but like you're looking for growth and improvement and development in players. And Josh is a really good example because there was a lot of question marks on Josh coming out, but he's squashed all those questions and put those to rest. And he's a massive problem, and he's a big part of what they're doing without question.
Yeah, kind of a big part, and this is one thing that this Texans defense is kind of hard to figure out at this point, both in the run and the pass game. They're one of the better passing defenses in the league when it comes to yards per game, but the red zone's been an issue. The run game, they're letting up lots of run yards per carry, and yet they're doing all right in the sum total of it. It's there's a lot to prove against Josh Allen. The biggest thing is that Josh Allen has progressed onto a next stage or level of NFL quarterbacking. He looks like a pure professional quarterback there this year. He's spreading the ball around. We'll get to the injuries to Khalil Shakir and others in a little bit. But more than anything, the ability to hit downfield strikes with or without Khalil Shakir is something the Bills haven't quite really hit the way they'd like to this year. They're spreading the ball horizontally a lot, but we've seen the Texans defense struggle with coverage gaffes and lapses. Obviously, the Colts game was the worst. They let up 3 plays of 50-plus yards. They could have let another unchecked touchdown because of a coverage error if Anthony Richardson hadn't gone full Anthony Richardson in that scenario. But let me be sure. I gotta take care of my people at BetUS here. There we go. So this is a big challenge. The Texans proving that they go up against one of the better quarterbacks in the league and be victorious. And I think this is going to be a low-scoring game, actually, just because of the way these two defenses play. Ignore the lighting change here for a moment. Be a slugfest between these two teams, but the Bills are really good at limiting explosive plays against opposing offenses. And the Bills, though they have been fearsome versus lesser opponents, they're also trying to establish more of an explosive game downfield. They're a little bit more horizontally attacking right now. So regardless of the winner, I am taking the under at BetUS. Right now, you can get a 150% bonus on your first deposit all the way up to $2,000. You'll get a 125% bonus on your second and third deposit as well. Just use the promo code YouTube150 at betus.com. There you go. Okay, and I checked the mic volume. Thank you for that. If mine is a little lower and Nick's is fine. Injuries. Let's get to these because there might be a surprise that some of you haven't been surprised with yet. Joe Mixon out. That's not a surprise, obviously. Dameon Pierce questionable. Titus Howard questionable. The scuttlebutt is that they expect him to play. Blake Fisher had a rough go of it when he was in relief of Laramie Tunsil the other day. So questions on your health at the offensive tackle. Tank Dell, gloriously, hopefully returning on Sunday. Jerry Hughes and Derek Barnett out, which this is a pass rush that hasn't been quite as fearsome as we had hoped. Jerry Hughes is going to be going against his old team, and everybody in Buffalo loves Jerry Hughes. Everybody in Houston loves Jerry Hughes. But when you're going against your old team, you got a little extra juice. We saw that in Minnesota a couple weeks ago. Azeez Al-Shire with an illness. So I'm hoping that this is not of the flu or COVID variety, and it's more just of the bubble guts variety, because you can play through that. You slap on some Depends, get out there. But we'll talk a little bit more about just how important those two inside linebackers are, especially this week versus the Bills. Von Miller suspended. Now, he'd been playing like 20 snaps a game, but looked like when he was playing was more of the fearsome pass rusher that he typically had been. He's just getting up there in years. This is a suspension, not an injury or age issue, but it doesn't hurt not having him in there for the Texans. Khalil Shakir, their leading receiver by a good chunk because they've been spreading the ball around a lot. He's got 230 yards receiving. We're a little bit spoiled here with Nico Collins. I don't get out of bed for anything less than 400 these days. Ed Oliver, out. That helps a lot with some of the beleaguered interior offensive line. Defensive backs and linebackers they're all shot to hell. Here's I think it's Laura Rutledge, right, from ESPN, talking a little bit about Josh Allen, just to get back to him, and we'll spend some time on the defense before we get to the offense.
Certainly hasn't dropped off. He's leading the NFL in total QBR and has 9 combined passing and rushing touchdowns, the third most in the NFL. Not to mention, Allen has also only turned the ball over twice, his fewest turnovers through 4 weeks of the season in his career.
Yeah, so he's good. I probably shouldn't have added that second clip. We don't need any more propaganda. I think Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator, who was part of the reason that things got sideways, or at least I guess more sideways with Stephon Diggs last year, was when Joe Brady took over about 2/3 of the way through the season and made some good changes with Josh Allen, where he started trying to spread the ball around more. They started using Stephon Diggs on shorter and intermediate routes. And look, this happened, that happened, but both sides are fine now. They didn't say anything that was nugget worthy in the press this week, but the effects took hold, and Josh Allen looks to be a different type of quarterback. But they just, especially without Khalil Shakir, it's just up to, at this point, the pass rush, Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, getting there, containing Josh Allen. I mean, if they're having trouble letting Sam Darnold out of the pocket, then by all means, don't let Josh Allen out of the pocket. But then the defensive tackles on the inside, Mina Kimes actually brought up some good points on this on ESPN.
Texans this year have matched 12 personnel, meaning 2 tight ends on the field entirely with nickel. So just 2 linebackers. If they do that, these Bills will run on them exactly as you described. And I think over the course of the game, if you wear them out, that's going to open things over the middle of the field, which is another area where, of course, the Bills have been thriving. And the Texans have struggled. They're actually 28th in QBR and throws between the numbers.
Yeah, so down the middle of there, in the bulk there, right where Azeez Al-Shire would typically be. But with his illness, might not play. The fact that what Mina had mentioned about them playing in nickel all the time, I mean, they have 2 linebackers in Toa Toa and Azeez Al-Shire who have played 100% of the snaps, or not 100%. They've played all the snaps at linebacker except for one. Neville Hewitt has 1 rep at linebacker. Like, they're in nickel all the time. So it's not anything new, but it's something that over the course of time, until Christian Harris gets back, it's a weakness at times when teams want to load up and really press the issue with the run. Then without Azeez Al-Shire in there, they don't have another guy on the roster. Jake Hansen is questionable, that they feel good being an every down linebacker out there. So that's the thing to monitor and watch. Texans right now, like I said, they're weird in their run defense. They're 4th in run defense DVOA, and yet they give up 4.7 yards per attempt, which is 25th in the NFL. So I know the defensive tackles have taken a lot of the brunt of that. I think it's a combination of that, the linebackers being stuck at times between their pass and run duties, especially against mobile quarterbacks when they face RPOs or zone reads, which Josh Allen presents that challenge. Azeez Al-Shire is a huge key to this game. Like I've said all along, he's not going to be all pro this year. I don't know if he'll be Pro Bowl or anything, but he has changed this defense for the better by getting everybody lined up properly, by playing sideline to sideline. Typically, they're really good at limiting the outside run, although they had some lapses in that last week, which is actually something D'Amico had said earlier in the week. I know sometimes people worry that D'Amico's too nice. He's nice the way Gary Kubiak was nice, which is, for those of you who watch him on television, yeah, he's super nice. For those of you who have had to be coached by Gary Kubiak and or D'Amico Ryans, it's not that they're going to MF you. It's just that they've got such damn high standards. Here is D'Amico Ryans when Daniil Hunter had said that D'Amico really tore into him on the sideline in the third quarter last week. This was on the coaches show with John Harris and Mark Vandermeer. D'Amico explaining what he was saying to them last week.
With the big run that they had and for them to get into the red area.
Hold on. Wrong one. Here we go.
I just feel energy and just watching how we were playing, some of the runs that got out on us, it was just uncharacteristic of us. Like, we set the edge, and we don't set the edge, and they get a run for 22 yards. Like, we supposed to be sticky in coverage. We're just letting guys run by us, and that's not who we are defensively. And then as the guys come over to the sideline, I just, guys were looking down and feeling dejected. It's like, man, what are we – like, it was that moment where us, like, what are we doing? Like, we got to snap out of this funk or whatever we're in. We got to snap out of it, and we got to pick it up, get the energy right so we can win a ball game. Like, we can't be feeling sorry for ourselves.
So that big play that sparked the goal line stand was really frustrating to me because, yes, they've had some issues with the interior, but the way they were lined up on that play – I don't know where the mental error was. I think there were probably two because both defensive tackles were lined up to one side of the center, which usually you do that if either the one defensive tackle is going to slant back across or if you're going to have a blitz of some sort. But you ended up with Azeez Alshire basically playing three technique on that play, and it opened the gates. And Kalen Bullock did a really good job chasing it down. But I also wonder, I don't know if he maybe was out of position to start with. So he got credit for the hustle, but somebody screwed up. Somebody done messed up on that. After that, though, when they had the goal line stand, it was the turnaround. I mean, defensively after that, they were very, very good, allowing less than 2 yards per play or carry on that. It was a very good effort. This is D'Amico talking about that goal line stand itself.
With the big run that they had and for them to get into the red area, it was already like, okay, it's 4 down territory. Like, they're going to try to score a touchdown on this, so let's win third down. You can't get too excited about the win on third down, but Sting, outstanding play by him. And then quarter ends, and it's like, okay, empty is probably quarterback draw, so let's, we made an adjustment there with our defensive tackles to get them tighter. Yep. And Azeez did a really great job of communicating to those guys of, hey, just stay inside. Like, whatever you do, stay inside. So Azeez and his communication, Foley and Mario of actually executing it. Yep. It was, man, what a play. Yeah.
And the interior of the line made another, on first and second down on that series, on that goal line stand. They made good plays on that as well. Mario Edwards and Foley Fatukasi, they're playing better than their PFF grades are. For some reason, PFF and I do not agree on the way they grade the interior defensive tackles it's redundant to say interior defensive tackles. The way they grade the defensive tackles in D'Amico's defense, there's things that he asks them to do that make it kind of tough to anchor down versus the run. When they're asking them to jet up field, but then also anchor down versus the run, there's times where you're just going to lose that. And it's a matter of learning when and where to be a little bit more conservative. So those guys have been better than I think some of the PR would have it, but it's not Ted Washington and Keith Traylor back in the day. So versus James Cook, who's averaging 4.5 yards per carry, their backup running back Josh Allen is averaging 4.8 yards per carry. He might be the starting running back before too long. He doesn't seem like he's taking as many hits as he used to, though. He's done a good job with that. I think that's where it is still a work in progress. Azeez Alshire is key, though. I'm going to be as distraught as I was over Joe Mixon being out of this game. I'm going to be more distraught over Azeez Alshire if he's out, because that opens up more of an opportunity for the Bills to just methodically drive down the field, take shots where they might. When we get to the offense, Here's Bobby Slowick on the run game. I'm gonna try not to talk about penalties too much, mostly just because I'm sick of talking about the penalties, and I'll take some of your questions after we get to the offense here a little bit. But penalties, run blocking. There you go. The offense is fixed. Penalties, run blocking. Offense is fixed with or without Joe Mixon, because Cam Akers is doing all right, but Joe Mixon would be a lot better. Don't get me wrong. He's just a different freak of human being. Here's Bobby Slowick on the run game.
They're on different.
Oh, no, wait. This is Bobby Slowick. Hold on. This is Bobby Slowick talking about why they can't just air it out all the time.
It's fun to throw the ball with CJ and to get the ball out to the guys we have, and just get the ball to them in space. And hey, let's do this all the time. Let's do this all the time. Let's do this all the time. But after a while, like that can wear on different aspects that you don't think about. I know I've referenced before how the run game actually helps protection. It can help receivers take some snaps off so that the next rep, when they got a route that they got to run, they can run that full gas. They can set up a leverage they want to set up because we set it up in the run game, not on a pass play. It really all ties together, and the conviction in that all the way across the board.
Yeah, and I wholeheartedly 100% agree with Bobby Slowick on this. I just if it is a championship caliber offense, and if it's something that you get to where it is like Kyle Shanahan's offense in San Francisco, it's not just all the old cliches about using play action or you running the ball to set up the play action. In a really well-constructed offense, all those run plays are tied to all those pass plays. The concepts complement each other. The one thing he mentioned, which some people interpreted as receivers taking a play off, he said that receivers can be fresher for their primary routes when there's some run plays mixed in. Run blocking, especially if you're just sealing a corner out on the perimeter on a run play compared to running a go route, night and day. So yeah, there's something to that, to having some balance there. The Texans have just been wasting too many of those run plays, turning them into a 1 yard gain, so it ends up being 2nd and 9. You got to get to the point where you're not in 3rd and long all the time. The penalties we've talked about ad nauseum. You just can't keep taking points off the board like they did 3 times in a row with the Vikings. Offensive line penalties took them out of scoring position once, killed explosive plays 2 other times on 3 series in a row. We saw it last week. I know Laramie was wearing red gloves. I just hope he's not wearing red gloves this week. I don't want to get too hung up on that. For those of you who don't know what the hell I'm talking about, a bunch of offensive linemen had pointed out that, hey, when you're wearing bright colored gloves, it's an invitation to the officials to just really see the holding call. And Laramie got 2 holding calls last week. They weren't false starts. They weren't illegal formations. So it's progress in that regard. But it did maintain his lead well atop the leaderboard for penalties taken so far this year. He had 1 refused, but he's skating there. He's up there. He's on pace for a boatload. I'm not going to fixate on that. The run blocking it's not just Cam Akers. Like Cam, yes, they'd be better with Joe Mixon in there. Joe Mixon covers up a lot of blemishes, but they're just not consistently doing the right thing enough. There's just too many times where everybody's doing the right thing except for one guy. And, Kenyon Green's had probably the majority of the bad snaps, but they've taken their share all along. Sometimes it's just communication between the offensive linemen themselves or the tight end who's playing fullback. It's got to get better. The Bills are not a great run defense, obviously. Whether I say obviously because it's, last Derrick Henry had 199 yards rushing, but the Bills play bend but don't break defense, and they're really good at limiting the explosive plays. The thing that other defenses have been kind of tweaking their defenses to look like, that's how the Bills play every week. So they play a boatload of cover 2 and cover 6. They're really good and disciplined in it. They've got athletic guys on the backside, but they're not that heavy. And they'll give up some yardage to a competent running team. So there is opportunity here, especially with that Oliver out, that they can get something working and just be in better down and distance situations. I've been asked about CJ Stroud a lot this week. I think I've done a hit per day in Buffalo and or Rochester because I'm from there, you see. Buffalo wings. I've got blue cheese coursing through these veins. I do. But they've been curious. Like, so how's CJ Stroud? They always ask me very politely, so how's CJ Stroud doing? I think CJ's playing better than he did last year. It's just that teams have been dead set on taking away the deep ball, taking away those 3 top receivers. And in doing so, CJ's shown good understanding that he's got to be patient and be careful taking shots downfield. Nico Collins helps out a lot in that regard. But there's still a matter of timing and rhythm and making it more automatic. And we've seen on the final drive last week, at the ends of halves and at the ends of games, I think they've almost used Dalton Schultz as like a decoy for most of the game, and then all of a sudden he pops up in some critical moments. But I think spreading that out a little bit more evenly and quicker and being snappier with it is going to be something that's a work in progress the whole season. Go back to Pat Mahomes the last year he had Tyreek Hill, where everybody just said, nope, we're not going to let Tyreek Hill get behind us. And it was a progress for Pat Mahomes. And I think it was harder for him mentally and psychologically than for CJ is just so freakishly mature in a lot of ways. I'm not trying to compare him next to Pat Mahomes, but CJ had a more advanced understanding of football when he came into the league than Pat Mahomes did, just by virtue of the college he played in and everything else. So he's fine. He's absolutely fine. If they had a run game, a formidable run game, or even a respectable run game, and if they weren't making so many self-inflicted wounds as they have been, then it would look a lot different. So tomorrow is a really good time to try to get that working. Stephon Diggs, who I've waited until now to talk about, Stephon Diggs is also just fine. I think it is what it is, which I hate using that phrase, but I think it's different for him mentally for a couple of reasons. One, it's a new dynamic, and he knew coming in that things were going to get spread around. In a lot of regards, Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs have become some of your biggest rushing threats. Stephon Diggs is a potential passer. Stephon Diggs is they had Stephon Diggs throw the pass in the Minnesota game, and then last week they had him fake the pass to CJ and then run it in. And they're using him creatively. But I think just because it's a new setting and because it's, he's obviously not the numero uno bona fide, no doubt about it, it's probably easier to accept that role. But we'll see. I didn't sense a lot of Bills people just out for venom or blood against Stephon Diggs this week, which was refreshing. I'll take some of your questions here. Then I'll give the update on my various injuries from this week. They might as well be yellow gloves. Yes, good point. Pierce's maybe as well, I think. Probably Akers and Dare. I'm guessing you're asking a question about who's going to be there. If we see Pierce, man, I've told you guys many times before, I hope I was dead wrong about a lot of the things that I suspected during training camp, where I love Dameon Pierce, but I'm nervous about the way he's played through training camp last year, everything basically since he got injured his rookie year. It's wait and see with him, and I hope that he's 100% healthy, because I want to see the absolute best of him for sure. British Brooks, 44 yards rushing, 16 yards reception. British had one bad snap as a blocker last week. So my dream of British Brooks, the fullback, need to be tabled for a little bit, or at least till later in the season. It's hard to play fullback, man. It's hard to play a position that nobody wants to be on the field anymore. And so they say, well, we don't really like this position, but I guess we'll use you, but we won't give you any reps to figure it out. Now, you see, and then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. See, you have a fullback, put him in there, doesn't block. Bobby's wired a little bit different. Don't you dare try to equate anything from Outback to anything you find at a minimally inspected wing joint in Buffalo, New York. I love Outback. Yeah, Outback's good, but I'd go for the bloomin' onions. CJ's yards need to get back up to 300 per game. Last week he did. Tomorrow needs to happen again with 100 at Dell. I like it. Where's Christian Harris? Nobody knows. He's eligible to return from IR. He's out. He's looking better than he did before, but I don't know. Right now he's our Kyle Tucker. Except with Kyle Tucker, we at least thought he was going to come back early, whereas Christian Harris, we haven't known from the get-go. Christian Harris was out doing interviews about how awesome he felt all offseason, 3 days before camp. And then all of a sudden he was gone. We were looking around the first day of practice. We're like, hey, what did you? Nobody wanted to be the first person to like say that Christian Harris wasn't out there because it was kind of a big deal. And I was told at the time that it was no big deal. Yeah. I'd love Torres to win and have Diggs have a minimal game. That way, after the game, you can say it's nice to be on a team where I don't have to carry everybody. I like your thinking, Christopher. That's the snarkiness I've been looking for. That's the kind of pettiness that I'm here for. Yes, and I want him to take his shirt off and run around the field in jubilation because he's so happy that he didn't have to carry the entire load. That's some good smack talk right there. That is some good smack talk. I don't want to sound naive or negative in football knowledge. Don't worry about that, Lori. It just seems now that the hype was a real thing off season, so I feel our expectations. I don't know exactly what you're getting at there, and it might be because I'm still concussed from my multiple head wounds, or I get nervous retroactively about all the hype from winning the offseason. There's nothing worse, as we know, than winning the offseason. Vince Young saying that the Eagles were a dream team back in the day. The Jets last year winning the offseason. You got to be very, very careful winning the offseason. Right now, I think a lot of it just does feel like the classic transition where in the NFL, if you've got a bunch of new moving pieces, it's not always as simple as plug and play, that it takes time for cohesion. And it does take time to adjust to the way that the defenses are playing the Texans. I think they anticipated they'd see a lot of zone. They're seeing more cover 2 than anybody else in the league right now. I mean, it's in the classic solution to cover 2 is run the ball. Only elite defenses can stop the run when they're playing cover 2. And some less than elite defenses have stymied them in the run game when facing cover 2. So that's part of what's really frustrating here is they're showing looks where, okay, you should be able to run versus this team. What are you doing? And they showed progress last week. I called it Texans 20-19, by the way. I don't know, Chris. I don't think so. Imagine how things will look with Harris and Autry and hopefully a healthy Mixon. Yeah, the light. Excuse my ignorance, but do we know if Joe has a high or low ankle sprain? Yeah, I'm guessing it's a high ankle sprain just because it's taken this long. And somebody had asked, hey, if it was such a bad ankle injury, how was he able to go back out on the field? That's the way these damn finicky ankles work. Having had a couple high ankle sprains myself, this is my layperson's explanation. You got tiny little spaces down there in your lower leg. And once the swelling kicks in, the swelling has no place to escape those tiny little spaces, and they're also surrounding all these nerves. So it's frustrating because it's not a pain tolerance issue. It's just that everything swells up and it shuts down the nerves in your foot to the point where you can't function normally. So sometimes in a game when you get an ankle sprain, they'll tape it up real tight. You get back out there and you're running around on a peg leg, but it's not quite so bad. And then afterwards is when the mayhem ensues. So it's probably something like that. Yeah, I think it's going to be a tight game. I agree with you. Christian's tail. I saw Christian there. I thought it was Christian's tailgate. The Bills are having a block party at Christian's tailgate. I have several in-laws in there right now who are in from Buffalo. I also had to purchase tickets for somebody from Buffalo. Thanks a lot, Bills fans, for traveling so well because the ticket prices were absurd. As far as my injuries, as promised, I'd tell you about my injuries. So last Saturday, I was walking out of a parking garage and a Barry arm hit me on the head, cut my eye, got a little bit of a black eye underneath there. And then you might be wondering, hey, what's that on your elbow? Is that from the barrier gate? No, that was the other day. I had forgotten to eat, and I had forgotten to eat all day long. I had breakfast and then I forgot to eat. And I did some cardio like right before I went to bed, didn't hydrate afterwards. Should have known better, but when I get dehydrated, this tends to happen. I pass out. So in the middle of the night, I got up to go to the bathroom. My wife's out of town. I'm all by myself. Got up to go to the bathroom, and then all of a sudden, I opened my eyes like, why am I on the bathroom floor? What the hell? Why am I sleeping? And it takes me a while to figure these things out. And my head hurt like hell, and my butt hurt like hell. Not the business part, but like my coccyx, my tailbone. My elbow hurt like hell. And the best I could think was because I had just gone to bed and I was watching the Menendez brothers. In my mind, somebody had snuck in and cold cocked me, and maybe possibly burglarized the place. But I was so tired. And I was figuring this out as I was stumbling back to bed. So I figured, all right, well, if they burglarize me, it's already done. But I'm so tired, I'm gonna go back to sleep. Very confused at this point. Got up to go to the bathroom again later. My head was kind of hurting. Passed out again. This time it was on the carpet, I think, on my way back from the bathroom. And I was wondering what the hell, rug, actually, unfortunately not a carpet. And my head hurt again. Maybe this is when my elbow got injured. I'm not sure. Stood up, passed out again, hit my head again. I woke up. So I crawled back to bed and then went to sleep. And then I woke up in the morning and I hadn't realized it at the time, but I've got a huge bruise on my ribs. And I thought my ribs were broken. They might be. They can't do anything for broken ribs. If I'm not peeing blood, I'm not going to go to the doctor for broken ribs unless like something starts jutting out or something. It feels a little bit better today than it did yesterday. Maybe because I took Advil, but I just touched it. So that's in a nutshell the last 8 days of my life. It's been kind of miserable. I might start wearing a bike helmet around in public. My wife is petrified to leave me alone to my own devices anymore. So other than that, everything's great. I feel better than half the Texans do with their injuries right now. But I think that this is going to be a low-scoring game. My prediction. In a good way. I don't think it's going to be because of sloppy offense. I think it's going to be because of good, competent defense, but two teams that are going to play a little bit of bend but don't break. What it's going to come down to, I think, really, is selectively blitzing Josh Allen while still keeping him in the pocket and getting those defensive ends going the way that I think they're really, really capable of doing. Like, we haven't really seen those guys in a the Bears game was a little bit different because they were blitzing the hell out of the Bears. So it wasn't as much just two defensive ends crushing their matchups on the outside. And ultimately, I hate to bring up turnovers, but if I'm talking about blitzes, I'm talking about turnovers too. Jalen Petrie with a big game tomorrow. One more here. Seth on the YouTube stream a Guardian helmet. Okay. We might need to, if I can get a sponsorship, maybe we'll make that, we'll make that happen. Listen, I'm only an anesthesiologist. Might want to get a hold. The first time this happened to me a couple years ago, I did all the testing and everything. It was dehydration. So thank you. I'm not turning down. When I was still possibly concussed and somebody gave me a suggestion, I got a little snippety about it. No, I 100% thank you, and I take that advice to heart. But it's when I'm dehydrated. And possibly I hadn't been drinking or anything else like that. It's simple. The first time it happened, I was in a doctor's office and he was explaining my upcoming hernia surgery to me. And I'm a little squeamish to begin with, but I was also dehydrated, hadn't eaten since like breakfast the previous day. And I did the same thing, passed out again like 3 times. So he called the ambulance. I spent the whole day in the emergency room, but I'm good now. Although I do have a hernia again. So I've got a hernia. I won't show you that. I've got a hernia, possibly broken ribs, a bruised elbow, a recovering black eye. I'm pretty sure I'm not concussed, but it was 4 jars to the head over the course of 8 days. Maybe I'll get checked out after that. I don't have any time. Look, the CBA doesn't cover me. I'm gonna play this football game tomorrow with or without a concussion. Oh, life alert. They told me I shouldn't hit it every time, so classic signs of a domestic abuse. I fell. That's all it was. Listed as doubtful tomorrow. The CTE. I think the one thing that saved me from CTE ultimately, I think, is that I've got just a gigantic noggin. Oh, I hit it again. That actually kind of hurt. I've got a gigantic noggin. I've taken so many blows to the head on the farm growing up. I've been absent-minded my entire life. I got hit by a car when I was 7 years old, and it was almost definitely my fault. Like I was doing just riding around, weaving out on a country road in North Carolina. My brother and my stepbrother were off ahead. We were supposed to be helping my dad bale hay, but my brother and stepbrother convinced me to bail on him. No pun intended. And I got hit by a car. Spent a few days in the hospital. So that one I got a concussion for sure. That one that was pretty rough. But other than that, I can take a punch. I could go at least like 90 seconds with Mike Tyson. Without putting any fight up at all, just covering up and taking a pummeling. I mean, just the Apple Watch. I don't know, man. I would lose the Apple Watch. I was beaten to. Scriptwriter says, stay in the closet. National media giving us crap for points scored. We need 30 tomorrow. Oh, where's engineer? What'd you say? Blink twice. All right, I'm gonna get going. I'm excited about tomorrow. I'm excited. I think this is gonna be a really good football game. A really good football game, even though it's low scoring. I think, but low scoring in a good way. Steady drives with red zone and goal line stands, a couple of turnovers here or there. More than anything, I want to see this Texans defense step up against an excellent quarterback. They face a few of them this year. We don't know what Aaron Rodgers is going to look like by the time the Texans see him, but Pat Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, on and on and on. So this is a really, really good test for the Houston Texans. And to any Buffalo fans who found their way here via the algorithm, thank you for sticking all the way through my injury litany here at the end. And thanks to BetUS for sponsoring the video. See everybody tomorrow. Stop by the pregame show if you have time.